Hi everyone, in today's video we are going to make a golden margarita pizza. I had planned to bake this in my Gozney Dome, but due to high winds I could not keep the pilot light lit, so I pulled out my Ooni Koda 16 and it did a beautiful job. This pizza is inspired by one made by Giorgia Caparicio of Don Antonio and Manhattan, and it's topped with a golden tomato sauce, buffalo mozzarella, olive oil, sea salt, and fresh basil. Giorgia's pizzas are all made with a naturally leavened dough, so I made the sourdough Neapolitan pizza dough recipe from Pizza Night, and I made the outdoor variation of it, which calls for slightly less water. To make the dough, you'll combine 335 grams of cold or room temperature water, 15 grams of salt, and 100 grams of starter. You want to use bubbly, active sourdough starter here, as opposed to sourdough discard. Stir it together, then add 500 grams of flour. I'm using Petra 5063 flour here. This is an Italian flour that behaves very similarly to a Tipo 00 flour, though technically it's considered a Tipo 0 flour. You can use any Tipo 00 flour here that you like, or you can also simply use bread or all-purpose flour. Stir the mixture together until you have a sticky, shaggy dough ball. If necessary, use your hands to help the dough come together. Cover the bowl and let the dough rest for 15 to 30 minutes, then perform a set of stretches and folds. Using a wet hand, grab an edge of the dough and pull it up and towards the center. Rotate the bowl and repeat the process until the dough comes together into a cohesive mass. Slapping and folding the dough also helps it come together. If time permits, repeat this resting and stretching and folding 3 to 4 more times. Know, however, that this is very forgiving. For this batch of dough, I only had time to do 2 sets of stretches and folds before I transferred the dough to another container for the bulk fermentation. I love using a straight-sided vessel for the bulk fermentation for sourdough because it really allows you to see how much the dough has increased in volume. This is a 2-quart container. You can get them on the King Arthur website in a set of 2. They're very reasonably priced. I have 4 of these and I use them for everything. As you can see, this dough more than doubled in volume during the bulk fermentation, which I did overnight. I never have a problem with my dough doubling in volume, but I do generally recommend to shoot for a 50 to 75% increase in volume to ensure that your dough doesn't over-ferment during the bulk fermentation. You would know if your dough over-fermented during the bulk fermentation if at this phase, when you turned it out, it was a puddly mess and it lacked any strength and elasticity. This dough feels really good. It's strong, it's soft, it has a nice extensibility, and it's going to be just fine. As always, I like to use a scale to portion my dough balls to ensure that they are all equal. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. You can simply eyeball it. For this recipe, the dough balls are roughly 237 grams. This is a 70% hydration dough, and while it will be a little bit sticky, you shouldn't need too much flour while you are balling up your portions. If you use too much flour, it's really hard to create tension. If you don't use enough flour, it can be sticky. So use flour as needed as you ball up your dough. Dust the dough balls with flour, then transfer each to individual storage containers and transfer to the fridge for up to 3 days. Today I'm transferring 3 of these dough balls to the fridge, and I'll keep 1 at room temperature in a dough mate for a couple of hours until I'm ready to bake it. This dough ball has been at room temperature for a little over 2 hours now, and my pizza oven is hot and ready to go, so I'm going to stretch it out, top it, and bake it. I'm using rice flour here on this plate as well as on the peel. I like using rice flour when I am baking in my outdoor oven because it doesn't burn the way wheat flour does. I'm topping this dough with a golden tomato sauce. I shared the recipe for this last week. You, of course, can use a red tomato sauce in its place. This is 3 ounces of buffalo mozzarella, which I let drain on a dish towel for roughly an hour. The purpose of this is just to remove some of the moisture so that it doesn't create a soggy bottom. Gently pull on the outer edges of the dough to make it roughly 12 inches in diameter, then drizzle with extra virgin olive oil and sprinkle with flaky sea salt. This is the Ooni Koda 16, and it's been preheating for a little bit less than an hour. It's roughly 700 degrees Fahrenheit, give or take a few degrees. As soon as I launch the pizza into the oven, I turn the dial down to its lowest setting. After roughly 45 seconds to a minute, when I see the dough lifting up from the stone, I make the first turn. At this point, the pizza's been in the oven for roughly 2 minutes, and I return it to the oven in an effort to get a little bit more color on that one back edge. I'm a little out of practice using my Ooni Koda 16, but I think it did a really great job, with the exception of that one extra charred spot, which I could have prevented by popping that bubble before the pizza went in the oven. It has some nice even browning with some good leopard spotting. Finish with fresh basil, then cut and serve. I loved this pizza. The combination of the tangy sourdough crust with the sweet golden tomato sauce and the creamy buffalo mozzarella was just so delicious. The crust was soft and sturdy. It wasn't too wet in the center, and I just loved the whole combination. As always, let me know if you have any questions. Bye.